Hi, how are you all? This video depicts how women feel toward religion and God. I've witnessed this more often than not after they've been dumped or abandoned by a man. Are they doing this to maintain their bubble, or is God now their temporary replacement for the man? I don't believe they've changed at all, as they revert to their old habits when they find another or the same man. I'd like to address my feelings regarding religious ladies, specifically Christian women. They believe they can shove a crucifix up their cooch and then wipe their vagina clean on God's sleeve. That's how little respect most women have for religion these days. Many women also assert that they do not require feminism. This is because such women are young, skinny, and pretty. Similarly, women who do not require religion are young, thin, and lovely. There is a reason why church ladies are elderly, unmarried, or married to their families. I've only ever met one lady in church, and she was most emphatically not attractive, but there were plenty of decent and idealistic males present. Isn't it obvious why ladies become such good little Christians when their lovers dump them? A woman's self-esteem is destroyed when she is dumped. As a result, she is averse to repeating the experience in order to ensure that the next guy does not dump her. She'll go to any length, including becoming religious, to attract a man who feels tremendous guilt if he ever leaves her. Religious men also face significant peer pressure from other men in their faith to remain with the women they're with. If I were a woman, I would seek out guys in churches, knowing that such men would be more faithful to me, and that I would not have to worry about being duped. But for the vast majority of women, being cheated on is not something that happens. It's usually the other way around, so an unattractive woman is terrified of being cheated on. So she goes to church to be a part of the so-called community, and then they find the so-called religious males and control him, and that's when you start to see things. Coming back to the good old days, she's suddenly lost interest in going to church unless it's Christmas or Easter, because that's when everyone else attends, and if she isn't seen, it reflects poorly on her. I've known men who were persuaded to abandon their faith by ladies they met at church. What does this say about female chameleons? It tells me that they have no dedication to anything higher than themselves, which is particularly true of so-called religious women. I dated a religious woman in my early 20s, and she spread her legs faster than a clam in a pot of boiling hot water. Religion was just a bait that she was using as an excuse to strip down and try to trap me with her holy vagina. She figured she could just swap one faith in Christianity for another centered around her sacred ass. I quickly learned that religious women are the biggest slots and to stay away from them whenever possible. Religion works. When a woman meets a religious man, he's usually young, idealistic, and presumably sheltered, making him significantly simpler to deceive and fall for her deception. The religious man is a permanent replacement for the atheist who dumped her ass in the past, and hopefully this time this new guy isn't going anywhere. If a man believes in God, he's more easily manipulated by women. The lack of religion in today's Western world could be one of the many reasons that men going their own way are gaining more and more traction. After all, if a man doesn't feel guilt and shame for not reproducing, being fruitful and multiplying as Christianity encourages, he'll become more selfish by default. If he doesn't have any children and doesn't feel guilty about pumping and dumping, it will be more difficult for many women to keep their high-status males because men in other cultures have the option to jump from one woman to the next. In Muslim countries, where women are all dressed the same, this type of circumstance does not exist. It is assumed that all women are subservient and well-behaved because of religion, but most of these ladies are clearly just going through the motions and claiming to have faith. I'm not sure where you live, Mr. Anonymous, but in Canada, this scenario where women return to church after being dumped is quite rare. Most women up here don't turn to religion after they've been dumped. Instead, they turn to Tinder to find instant attention because they don't have a man in their life anymore. Normally, I don't include articles from the Huffington Post or the Huffington Post, but I thought this one was particularly important, and there's a quote that says the overall change in the population of religious women in the United States over the past 50 years has been one of dramatic decline, which pretty much sums up where religion is headed in most of the Western world. The more liberal our society becomes, the less religious people become in general. I'm also sure that in the past, before it was acceptable to be a lesbian, many women joined convents to find like-minded women, and no one would suspect them. The numbers for Catholic priests aren't any better apparently. There will be only 31,000 Catholic priests in the United States by 2020, and of those only half will be women. Right present, there are more priests between the ages of 80 and 84 than there are between the ages of 30 and 34. So, if Roman Catholicism is dwindling, you can bet that all other forms of Christianity are dwindling as well. After the Clone Wars, there will be more people identifying as Jedis than Catholic priests on this planet. But back to nuns, their numbers will drop to around 40,000 by 2020, with only 21,000 under the age of 70 in the United States. So, Mr. Anonymous, I'm not sure where you're getting your numbers, or where you're meeting these women who have suddenly become religious and have just discovered Jesus for the first time. I'm not a religious person and haven't been for over 15 years, but I do know that with less religion comes fewer moral values and behaviors. In the past, religion may have kept women in check, as well as most men, but those days are long gone. Why would modern women worship God when they act as they do? I was with her for 2 years longer than I should have been because I lost my virginity to her herb and felt some religious guilt at the time. How many women, religious or otherwise, would choose to be with their partners if their partners were incredibly messed up with regard to their health? I would suspect very few. I only left her when I realized she didn't care about what I was going through and didn't S anyway. That's all I have to say for today. Thank you for taking your daily dose of red pills, and remember, a red pill a day keeps Satanic at bay. So enjoy the rest of your day and cheers.